Welcome back to another episode of Trading Secrets. Today, I am joined by entrepreneur, reality TV star, and fellow Dear Media podcast host, Katie Maloney. Katie is well known for her role in the hit reality TV show Vanderpump Rules for the past 10 years. Katie quickly established herself as one of the fan favorites among the cast members in Bravo's hit show and has capitalized on it personally, professionally, and financially. The perfect fit for Trading Secrets. Today, we are going to dive deep into the world of Vanderpump, Katie's multiple business ventures, and how she continues to focus on her mental health while being in this crazy reality TV space and all these new seasons that keep coming. Katie, thank you so much for being here and coming on Trading Secrets.
Well, thank you for having me. That was a very shining intro.
Yeah, that's part of the strategy. I gotta like pump you up, make you feel comfortable, and then let it go. All right. And then this is actually a good segue into, we all know Katie from Vanderpump. 10th season's coming out. Just everything that you've been a part of, like wild roller coaster of ups, downs, lefts, and rights. But what was Katie like, especially professionally, before Vanderpump came your way?
Professionally, I mean, there was no real professional Katie before that. I mean, I was just kind of hustling, waitressing, and I was, pursuing acting and modeling for some time. But prior to that, I had done, assistant work. And then right before Vanderpump, I decided to abandon all that, put it on the back burner, I'll say. Okay. And I was actually, interning at a record label. Interesting. And I was like, I maybe really want to pursue this, maybe want to do something in the business side of it, not as an artist.
Like talent management stuff?
No, in publishing or music supervision. Okay. So music song placement and film, television, commercial.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so then when did you go to school? Did you go to college?
I did one semester. Okay,
and then you dropped out.
Yeah, I didn't really have the desire. I don't want to say the ambition, but it didn't really appeal to me, college. Okay. But when I graduated high school, I was like, I should probably give it a shot just to see. Who knows? Maybe I might love it and decide to continue with it. Okay. And so I went to the University of Utah, and I was like, yeah, no, not for me.
So University of Utah, you do the semester or half a year, and then you drop out. When you drop out and then move to LA, what's like family saying, friends, family? Are they okay with it? What's the pushback look like?
I didn't move out right away. I'm from a small town, and I didn't think a place like LA was very a good place for an 18, 19-year-old. So I waited till I was like 20 years old. My brother lived out here. Okay. He had been out here for a few years. So I was able to come and stay with him. I got offered a job as an assistant to a stylist. So I moved out here with a job ready to go, and it was intimidating because that job required me to be, in my car and running errands. So I had to learn how to get around the city very quickly.
Gotcha. Yeah. One of the things I think people think about, especially from small hometowns that listen to this show, is how do you actually make that leap of faith? Like, yeah, that's, I grew up in Buffalo, small town. The idea of going to New York City and trying to work for Wall Street was always like the dream. But then you factor in like how much it costs and all the like negativity that can come with it and all the challenges. When you came to LA, did you have like financial, like a dollar amount or something that you're like, okay, I now have $10,000 or $1,000 or $500 saved up, I can do it? Or did you just say, no, I'm just going?
No, it was maybe less than a month notice. I didn't have time to plan, and I think it's kind of better that way because you can kind of psych yourself out. That way you really just have to make it work. I think the pressure is on, and I work better under pressure. I think when it's sort of that you gotta just do anything you can to survive, I think. And I was making pennies. I think I was making like $400 a week.
And that was being an assistant to the stylist?
Yeah. And I worked, 25 hours a day, 8 days a week kind of thing. I didn't have time to do anything else. So that was kind of nice. I didn't really need money for a social life, but but I didn't know I didn't really have a ton of money saved up, but just enough to kind of, put gas in my car and food in my mouth.
We're going to fast forward eventually to the Vanderpump days and how much things have changed. But there are a lot of rumors out there and even facts stated by people from the show that Vanderpump is like one of the best paying reality TV shows. So when you, okay, so we got to look there. We're going to come back to that. But when you think about where you are today versus where you were then with you're like, not much, $400 a week, has a lot changed in your life? Or like, what would you tell that person that was like just giving it a shot if you could talk to that person?
Oh God, I would say just don't give up. Because I feel like the first couple years when you're out here, it can be very daunting. It's much of a love-hate relationship with the city. That's why I think the turnover rate is so high here. It's hard to find your family, your community here. It's hard to find a job you love. It's hard to find your place here. Yeah. And be happy here. But I think I'd say don't give up, because you're gonna find your place. It's gonna be good. It's gonna work out.
It's gonna work out, and it did work out. Now, when you got, let's just say you were discovered to go on Vanderpump, before that happened, was there like a big break or something like monumental that happened in your career? When you look at your career and where you are today, was being discovered to go on Vanderpump like the biggest thing?
I think so. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, there wasn't really anything big before that. I think that's definitely a case of being in the right place at the right time, because I had moved out here because I wanted to pursue, I had a job offer, but the goal was always to come out here to, try to pursue a career of being, in the movies or on TV. Yeah. And so, you get jobs working at these restaurants, but you never think that taking a job at a restaurant was going to be that opportunity that was going to get you on TV.
That's the crazy things about life, right? Like you're working at a restaurant, and when you were working there, was that like full-time job, side hustle? What was the thought process there?
That was my main source of income.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And to think that is what it turned into is just amazing. Now I come from the reality TV background, from The Bachelor. We've had actors and actresses on. I've taken some takeaways in LA that there's this like reality TV versus acting world kind of. And like, I think actors they believe that like reality TV is like much lower, like lowbrow, beneath to them is the word. And if someone like yourself was thinking about getting into acting, were you at all ever concerned about going into reality TV, knowing that would ruin your chance at an acting career, or could?
Especially back then, because at that point there was even more of a stigma attached to reality TV. It was looked at as much more lowbrow back then. Mm-hmm. At that point in my life, I had put acting a bit on the back burner. I wanted to pursue other things. I wanted to take my future and career, if you will, into my own hands. I felt that acting, I got tired of hearing no. It was so subjective. I didn't want my future and success to be, at the whim or in the hands of someone else. I didn't want it to be left up to, well, I'm just like not tall enough or something just so small and
uncontrollable.
And arbitrary. I wanted to just pursue something else. So when this came up, I was like, fuck it. I don't really care about acting at this point, but like that's not really my priority at this point. So may as well. Yeah. Let's just see. Who knows?
Just like why at this point? Why not?
Why not? Yeah, exactly.
And so, what did that conversation look like? Like when you first got approached for the show, what was that like?
Well, they called a meeting at SUR, and we thought it was just going to be about the lounge because the lounge hadn't opened up yet. So we assumed it was just a regular old staff meeting discussing like protocol or like just run of show for what was going to happen next door. And Lisa was there, and very quickly she just told us that they were going to be shooting a pilot for a potential spinoff that they wanted to base at SUR.
Okay.
And so that they wanted to kind of talk to all of us and kind of interview, ask us questions for everyone that was interested. And obviously there was a number of people that were not interested.
Why? I'm surprised by that.
Because they were people that wanted to pursue acting.
Okay.
Or personal reasons. But a lot of
Yeah.
it was, they were serious actors.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to be serious
Okay.
actors. And they thought that this would hurt their career.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you guys have that conversation, you obviously wanted to pursue it. You did pursue it. What were you making as a server or bartender? What were you doing? Were you a server, bartender,
I was
host?
a server, yeah.
Okay. What can you approximately do you make in a world like that?
I mean, it was pretty decent actually. I'm trying to remember exactly. I would say, on a good night, we were making anywhere like $300-500, like up to $500.
Wow.
I would say on average, like it's like $250,
Yeah.
and we're talking on average. It was like maybe 3-4 hours of work. Not a
It's
ton.
not like you're putting in a 10-hour shift.
No, it was very compared to some of the other restaurants I worked at where we had like it was pretty grueling, like side work and like just it was like princess work,
Interesting.
We didn't have much side work. We didn't really have to, we just come in, just do our little thing and then
Get her done.
Yeah.
Okay. So how many days do you think on average you worked? Like 4 or 5 there?
4.
Okay. So let's call it. So this is all approximation. These aren't exact numbers, but let's say it's 400 on average. That's 1,600 a week. And that's like 80 something thousand if you like put the numbers in a year. That's amazing. Before I get away from this point in your life where you're serving, you've mentioned other restaurants and stuff. If there is someone out there serving, either because that's their full-time job and that's what they love and they want to keep doing it forever, or they want to use it as a stepping stone, what advice would you give to them?
I think it's great, like work to do. I think it's character building. I think everyone should work in the service industry. It's it can be just extra money in your pocket, supplementary income for sure. I think, and obviously you never know what's going to come of it too. You never know who you're going to meet.
Go to the right restaurant, right?
Yeah. I mean, there was times I worked at 2 restaurants at a time. I worked at a bar and then I worked at like a breakfast spot.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you're hustling the restaurant. Now, the last thing I'm asked about the restaurant space, if someone's working full-time now, I don't know, let's say they're starting as an accountant or they're starting somewhere, they just need more cash, but they have like a 7 to 3, 9 to 5, whatever it is. Would you recommend doing bartending or serving at night to make more side money, or would you say there's better avenues to go?
I mean, I totally would. It's fun. It's a fun environment to be in. You make friends with the people there. It's social. If that is your thing, if you, I mean, I know it's not for everyone, but I always enjoyed it. There's times where it can suck because you encounter some people that suck. That environment is not for everyone, but I've always enjoyed it.
I like it. I know a lot of people that actually, some people, not a lot, but I know some people that do Uber on the side, and they do Uber, they told me, strictly to meet new people and to just like have conversations. And so there was one guy who actually is like a very successful businessman, and he did Uber just so that he could get like samples and beta sampling from the people in the back. So he would have this theory, he'd have this product that he wanted to launch, and he did Uber so he can get people of, all different backgrounds and ages and demographics, and just ask them about the product he wants and get their opinion. So I think like no matter what it is, just like you said, even if it's meeting people or it's a couple bucks, like it could be a stepping stone. One introduction, I say, could like change your life forever. And it sounds like it did for you. So they come to you with the opportunity. When they say they're going to shoot the pilot, do they say like, if you come on board, do you get paid a little bit? Do they just say, you wouldn't get paid unless this works out? Like, how are they pitching it to you that you're like, I'm in?
I mean, it's basically at that point, it was an opportunity, and that it could be something really amazing if it goes, and that, there was a lot of potential and that the network was really excited. So it would be kind of up to us to make it into something that could be a hit.
Got it. And so how long did they film the pilot for?
oh gosh, I'm trying to remember because we shot the pilot. I think we shot the pilot and it was maybe like a week, and then that went off. They turned into like it's sizzle reel kind
Sure.
of thing.
Yeah.
And then when it got greenlit, then we went and shot the first season.
Okay. We'll talk a little bit more in the recap about the sizzle, the greenlit, what it exactly means. But it gets greenlit. You shoot the first season. How long are you guys shooting for in that first season?
I'm trying to remember. I think we started end of like May, mid to end May or beginning of June, maybe sometime. And then I think it was middle to end. I think it was about 9 weeks.
Okay.
So less maybe.
In that, let's say it's like around 2 months ish.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
around 2 months. Are you still serving at this point?
Oh, yeah.
So you're serving full time while filming full time.
Yep.
And you're getting paid for both.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Are you making more filming or serving?
I mean, it's over the course, it's probably about the same. I mean,
Really?
yeah, it's like it's not a lot when you're starting out.
Okay.
I think it was a pretty small amount. I think it was like, let's see how much you end up being in it, and then maybe there was like something on the back end. I think I remember, but yeah, it wasn't a lot. It was again mostly about like opportunity.
Okay, gotcha. And one of the things I asked, we've had some Real Housewives on, we've had people from MTV, ABC shows, and I'm always curious, especially with a new show like this. And I think this is relatable to anyone at home that's trying to understand their value for what they do. How do you know? And everyone has like a different answer for what they did with their groups, or talked to them or didn't talk to them, or just said, I don't know, pay me whatever, I just want to do it. How do you know what your value is when an offer comes to you from like a show or a season that there's no basis? You can't go, oh, well, the people last season got paid this. Like, how do you know what you should be paid? And did you negotiate it all?
You try to negotiate. Obviously, I mean, you want to get paid for your time and for what we didn't have any idea. Obviously, I mean, because you can't really compare yourselves to a Housewives show because that's a franchise, and they're going to base their first season off of like another show's first season and what they got paid, and but for us, it's like we're a brand new kind of show.
Yeah. So we had Ramona singing around in Jill's there, and they were like the OGs. So they were like the first ever season of Real Housewives. So there was no other Real Housewives.
Well, OC was the first.
OC,
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Pop culture fact check.
Yeah.
And they said that what they did was they just wanted it so bad because they already had the money. They're like, we'll just take it. And so I think it was like $7,500 an episode. They didn't even negotiate it. And then Ramona was like, yeah, like saying it was Jill's fault. And Jill was like, what is she talking about? But it doesn't sound like you guys had any of those conflicts where you're talking to other people and being like, should we go in together and try and negotiate more or anything like that?
No, I think we all wanted to be, it was like a favored nations thing.
Okay.
Like, I think we all kind of wanted to be on the same page with us being all, making the same, and just, that was, I think, the one thing that was important to us. But no, I think we all just wanted it to go. So that was most important, and just be like, well, we're just going to go in and, bleed out for this and then figure it out next year. I don't know. I don't think there was any of that. We just also like had no idea.
Yeah.
I think the only other person that had been on a show before, but it was just a totally different thing, was Stassi. She had done Amazing Race, and then some other show called Queen Bees, but even then it wasn't really anything to compare to.
Okay. Interesting. So you just give it a go, see where we can get paid. Let's see what happens. How do you, so in the Bachelor world, you go on the Bachelor, Bachelorette, and then I remember when we were in the season, a lot of the guys were talking like, what do we have to do to get asked to be on Paradise? It was like a big conversation. Like everyone wanted to get the next show, which is crazy. In your season 1, after it airs, do you guys immediately already know like you're going to be brought on for season 2? Are you trying to like sell that you'll be brought on? Like, how did you know if the next season would be there? What was that like?
Oh gosh. I think, I mean, just our show, I felt like season 1 was lightning in a bottle. We all were
I like
like
that saying, lightning in a bottle.
You know, the core of us, myself and Kristen and Stassi and Tom and Jax and Tom, were the six of us were already like best friends, and all dating each other, and had been for years before the show. And so having already this organic sort of friendship that had existed prior to and was continuing to exist, it was kind of like, okay, well, if the show comes back, it's kind of hard to like leave one of us out a little bit, So I mean, there was that bit of confidence that was there, and that the story was there and the friendship was there still. But still, like, it's a little bit nerve-wracking because you still have to prove that you can, bring value to the show. So I mean, I don't know, I remember always being like a little nervous because I didn't have it didn't come as natural to me as it came to other people. I'd say that.
Gotcha. Do you think like you felt pressure to, like, there were some people from the Winter House and Summer House from Bravo that were saying they felt pressure to like be more performative early on so that they would keep their job. Did you feel any of that, or were you just like, I'm just going to be me and whatever happens, if they keep me, they keep me, and if they don't, they don't?
It wasn't necessarily performative, but there was, my friends around the show that had such big personalities and such strong opinions, and I'm a little bit more reserved in mine. I was somebody that would often think before I spoke and would like to observe what was happening and not get involved as much. So I had to kind of become a little bit quicker and put my thoughts in my mouth and say exactly what I was thinking when I was thinking it, rather than holding back and waiting to say what I was thinking. So it wasn't performing, and I didn't feel that it was just the pressure to just be a little bit more proactive in all of that, just so I was getting involved a little bit more. So I don't know if that necessarily means being performative, but it just means, just becoming a little bit louder, I guess.
Yeah. No, louder and quicker, right? If you have the thought, like, it's rather than internalize what you might do at home. It's like, if you have it, you got to say it on TV, right? To make the big punch. At what point, when we talk about business, we've talked a ton on this podcast about monetizing social media. At what point was your social media growing to a point that you can make a couple bucks off it?
It took a while, because also when our show started, we premiered in 2013. So Instagram had been around for like a couple years, but it wasn't what it was now, especially, or even what it was a few years later. It wasn't this thing that people were making money off of. There was maybe some like bloggers, but everyone was just still posting pictures of like a weird, sunset. Like, it was just, we were just shit posting nonstop. Yeah. And so, but as our audience grew, that's when, social media was starting to like become what it, eventually became. Sure. So I would say it was maybe few years in. It took some
like 2016-ish time?
16, yeah.
Gotcha.
15, 16.
And when you look at like your businesses today and the things you're doing and just like income coming in, would you say social media is like a main component of that?
I mean, it's definitely, blended to that, for sure.
Is there one social media platform you like working with the most? Like TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram? Is there one you prefer over?
I mean, I like Instagram only because that's the one I'm most comfortable with. I'm terrible at social media. I know that's, I know, I feel pressure with social media to be active on it, to be consistent with it. I don't understand algorithms, and I know that's poor business on my end of it, because that is such an important part of it all. I just, if it's extremely like daunting to me. Yeah. To have to be at the whim of something that is just, out of my control at times, because again, these algorithms don't make any sense, and there's no rhyme or reason to them. People think that they can hack it and they can, but at the end of the day,
can. No one's bigger than that algorithm.
No.
That's for sure.
So I kind of miss the simpler days.
Yeah,
where it
when
was
you
just
could just
for
like
fun.
take a photo and put it out, and now it's so everyone. Yeah, I think that's an important thought, that anyone that does have a following, for the most part, there's so much thought and planning and time that goes in behind what's put out there. Like even Mr. Beast, the biggest YouTuber in the planet, he talks about the fact that when he does a video, he plans it 5 months in advance. And he's big on, like, he invests all this money into it. So he'll put millions of dollars into his videos just to keep growing his audience and knowing that the money's going to keep coming back. So it's a crazy, the whole social media world is just nuts.
I miss the authenticity of it. And that's something I do like about TikTok, because I feel like it has that more raw authenticity to it, even though if it doesn't. But I feel like you're seeing just more real people on it again. And it's not this heavily overly curated stuff that you see on Instagram, even though I love Instagram still. And that's my main, thing that I do. I try to get into TikTok a little more. I've just been much more of a spectator than anything, because it's just so entertaining.
It is. I have to talk to myself like, okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and then shut it down, because that algorithm locks you in. It controls your brain. It's nuts.
I like the guy's like, whoa, you've been scrolling for way too long.
Yeah,
like
seriously. I'm like, to put like monitors on, like, stop, put it down, like, because it's just it's the most time consuming thing. Yeah. This is a question I usually ask almost anyone that comes from the reality TV space. When you look at social media and you look at income from the show, which do you think you've been able to monetize at a larger value? Like over the whole course of everything, Vanderpump or social media?
I mean, they go hand in hand, because most of my following has been because of the show. They're all coming from the show.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
They're so intersected.
I haven't grown my social on social. I've, like, most of the people are following me from the show, so I feel like they're sort of mutually exclusive in a lot of ways. Gotcha. So I'd say the show.
Okay, that's fair. There you go. Show wins that one.
Yeah.
All right. And then how long ago was it? Was it a couple years ago that you started the podcast? And what was the thought process behind the podcast? A pivot to another business venture, another income opportunity? Was it a passion? What drove you to do it?
I wanted to do the podcast because I wanted to have a outlet where I could have my own, narrative out there, of just my own voice, my own opinions, my own thoughts to share, stories I wanted to tell, things I wanted to talk about that was coming just straight from me. Because most of what people have seen of me is, on the show. And that's not, it's not, it's moments, it's fragments, it's, I don't want to say edited, meaning it's not what you, but you're not seeing the full person of who I am. So I thought, like, this would be a great way for people to really get to know more of who I am and how I move through life and what I think and what my opinions are on everything.
Yeah, that's really cool. So the thought, so the thought was to broaden the people that are watching from the show. You can now show them a side of you that they haven't seen, that they only saw on the show, or they could hear more from your perspective about what you're doing. Was the show okay with that? Are they okay with you guys having your podcast and like bringing a different dimension to what's already out there?
Yeah, I think as long as we're not, in any way trying to discredit anything or, and it's obviously, I mean, I think that goes without saying. I don't, sure. And that's not, my goal was never to say like what you see is fake, and that's because that's not the case at all. Sure. It's just because, I feel that I just have, I don't know. I wanted to just have more conversations about things, that weren't going to be just on the show. I
think it's great. Like, your intention for everything is awesome. It's like so pure. It's like, I just went to LA because I wanted to. Like, I just wanted to. Yeah. It doesn't seem like fear when you're making these like career decision or new ventures. Fear doesn't really get in your way, or does it? Oh, I'm very much fear averse. Like, I get
You're very fear averse. I get scared to fail at things so much that I will just put it off or be scared to do it. And I think that also mostly comes from being scared to fail at it.
Okay.
I can be, if I want to do something, I want to do it well.
Got
and I
it.
want to be successful at it.
Okay, let's talk about your favorite, something that was like a successful episode you've had. What do you think is like the best episode you've ever had? And like, what is a takeaway maybe from that guest that someone can learn something from?
Oh my gosh.
I'll go first. How about that? Okay. So I think I've told this a little bit, but when we had Rob Dyrdek on from Ridiculousness and his laundry list of shows, I thought it was really cool that, first of all, I didn't realize what a like genius business guy this is, but also he had consultants that come into his company and rip his financials up. So he's like, can you do that to my life, but not with financials? Like, can you make my life is optimized as you make my businesses? So then the consultants who get paid like a ton to do this for business are like, you sure you want to do that? Like, yeah. So they put together this whole system and file so they could track what in life makes him happy. And then he would have to like put all these inputs. And the whole purpose of this like game that he creates is so that every day he's doing the things that are driving a happier version of him. And he feels like when he's happier, like he's better with his money. He makes more money. He's better with his businesses. So like his whole like thing was gamify your happiness. We all love games. We play them, with friends and family and stuff. But like if you can make your happiness a game and pay attention to it, it could like change your whole life. So that was one to me. I was like, whoa.
Wow, that's like some real rich people shit right there.
What'd you say? It's what?
Some real rich people shit right there.
Well, there's rich people. That's like wild rich people shit of what he did to get it.
I know, yeah.
But I think like I joked around. I was like, here's the poor man's version. Every day, just in a journal or something, write down what your happiness is, like 1 to 10. Just write it down somewhere. 1 to 10, truly how happy you are. And then maybe you could just like do your own observation. Like, maybe what did I do? Am I seeing any trends? That's like the poor man's, right? But it's like paying attention to happiness.
Yeah. Well, that's something I'm trying to prioritize more. So I should do that.
Try it.
Okay. I'm trying to just be more like practice gratitude as well.
Yeah, that's a big
one. When someone mentioned that to me, I was just like, yeah, we don't, I think, collectively do enough of that. We're focused on, manifesting things that we're not often just taking a look and taking stock of things that we actually have and being like, this is great.
100%. I'm on Enneagram. I'm a 3. And then when I went a new therapist, when I had my first session with her, we talked for a long time. And she said she heard she heard a form of gratitude like once in a very long period of time. And she's like, we need to work on that. I was like, so that's one thing that's in the works too. I'm working on, But can you think about one, and maybe guest or episode or one thing someone said that like, I don't know, from your podcast that maybe someone back home wouldn't have otherwise known or heard or anything like that?
I feel like I've had a lot of really great guests, so I feel like I don't want to like take away from anyone, but like I've been fortunate to have some really special people on. I mean, I always like one of my favorite people, and she was just on last week for the second time, is Sarah Nicole Landry, who also has a podcast on Dear Media.
Yeah, she hasn't been on, but she's for Birds of Papaya.
She is just
amazing.
Like one of the most kind, inspiring people ever. She talks a lot about just body neutrality and her journey of just, loving herself and skin that she's in and her, relationship with herself. And it's beyond inspiring. And she was somebody that had gone through a divorce and had some, kids at a young age and remarried again. And so the journey that I've been on, to me, has been most inspiring, just to hear that sort of second, not chance at life and everything, anything that's sort of mental health and loving yourself resonates with me and a lot with my listeners as well.
Yeah, especially in a world like today, her message is just so important, where we're constantly benchmarking, and especially, going back to career and finance, like you see what someone has and you're like, well, I don't have that, or I don't make that, or I'm not that happy in my career. I think she has done such an amazing job of saying, like, this is who I am enough, and I'm going to show you all parts of me. Even the parts that you think aren't beautiful and aren't great, to me are the most beautiful, and it's amazing. So Birds of Papaya, that's her handle, right?
Yeah.
Birds of Papaya is definitely one you got to visit. Okay. All right.
I think it's the Birds Papaya. Yeah.
The Birds Papaya. Yeah. We'll make sure that we got that right. We'll put it even in the notes. All right. Another business venture I saw you got is a sandwich shop. There's an article, Ariana Maddox, right? You guys are opening up a sandwich shop. Now that's a curveball. You're in the bar service business. You go on to Vanderpump. You're 10 seasons in. Then social media is taken off. The podcast, that aligns. The sandwich shop.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this.
Okay.
What was the thought there?
It's kind of a two-part. So, I've always, the restaurant and service industry is my life experience. I grew up in a restaurant. My mom ran a restaurant my whole life. I started working in her restaurant when I was 14.
Wow.
I wanted to, make bank. I wanted to, buy stuff for myself. And she was like, all right, well, if you want that, how are you going to pay for it? So I learned very quickly that, the things that you want in life, you have to earn, and, the value of the dollar and the whole thing.
Sure.
So I worked in restaurants half my life. That was my experience. So while I was trying all these different avenues and doing all these things, I, finally, when it came down to, wanting to really start a business, I couldn't deny my calling anymore. I was just like, I do what you know.
Yeah.
You have a lifetime experience basically in working in service. You should apply it here. But I didn't want to do a full-scale restaurant or bar. That to me was very daunting. My ex and her boyfriend had just gone through that process for nearly 2 years, and so that was
right, the licenses and everything. It's just a lot.
It's a lot. The other part, I am someone that heavily romanticizes life. I watch a lot of rom-coms. I'm into the Nora Ephron and Nancy Meyers movies big time. And, I just envision like myself owning like a little shop or like this like little boutique, and it's like where I go and it's like where I spend my days, and it's just like very like quaint and simple, but like it's just that kind of life, and then the handsome man comes in, breezes in off the street, and he's like, oh my gosh, like, can I order a sandwich?
And you're like, this is my shop. What's your name?
Yeah. But and sandwiches are the GOAT. I mean, I love sandwiches.
Okay.
Sandwiches. Who doesn't love sandwiches? Do you like sandwiches?
I love them. They're the best.
Right. One of my favorite sandwiches in LA is from Larchmont Wine and Cheese. I don't know if you've ever been there.
Okay, no.
And they're just like these simple, like artisanal, like almost gourmet sandwiches.
Okay.
And they're just delicious. And so that's a bit of some inspo there. But having the space that feels timeless and nostalgic and cozy, where you can come in and sit in like a little nook and have a glass of wine or something and just have this like beautiful little sandwich and just be in the space that you feel like you're in like a Nancy Meyers movie just became just so appealing to me.
I love it.
And I really wanted to do that.
That is so cool. That again, just like knowing your dream, living it out, doing it your way. What's the status update?
So we have a location right near here in West Hollywood. It's right in between SUR and Pump.
Perfect location, well thought out.
I know. We wanted to maybe go in the valley because that's where we both live. And so we were like, okay, like maybe keep it in the community. But when we found out that this amazing location was coming available, it kind of felt, it was fate. Yeah. The universe was stepping in and saying like, no, you got to do it. So we have this space and we are, raising funds at the moment. But
there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that look for investment opportunity. Yeah. Talk to us about the raising funds process. Oh. And if someone's out there that's like, I love Katie's story, I want to invest in that restaurant, what do they do?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's been an interesting process of this all. I've been talking to some other friends who are way more knowledgeable of how this works and pitching yourself. Because when it came down to it, it's like, get the pitch deck together, and then you have to have like your like term sheet, and we have like the legal team that did like all of this like other kind of boring work that's not as fun as like creating it. I call it boring. It's been so educational going through this process. But then having to get comfortable with pitching yourself to people is like something I'm so not used to, because I don't know. But I've come to terms with it.
Yeah. I think like one thing I wrote a book that's all about restarting your career. And so it's called the Restart Roadmap. One thing that I think is like really important is it's so hard to sell yourself, but you have to sell yourself. And I think even when you get into business, it's tough to sell the ambiance, what's going to be different. Like I saw in one article, you guys said, this business will be much more than sandwiches. We want it to have its own vibe, its own personality. So I think that like if you can sell yourself, you can sell a lot, and you'll have to like instantly be like, why should I go there? And you have to be like right on the spot, boom, boom, boom. And I think doing the whole raising process is such a good practice for that. It's so funny because if I started a restaurant, I would suck, and I would think like the boring part is like creating the menu and the items. It's like how wild our brains are, where I find like the pitch, I get like fired up. I'm like, oh my God, let me go pitch it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I could talk about the sandwiches and the ingredients and the vibe and the whole thing all day long, but then when it comes to like why me, I'm like, well, the truth is that, you know, this is my life experience,
so
and that,
cool.
you know, it also just kind of creating something that feels like a family, and that's what I want. I want to romanticize lunch and my life.
I love it, and you're doing it, which is the coolest part. I think a lot of people want that, but they don't find a way to do it. You're finding a way to do it, which is so cool.
I'm trying.
You're trying. How much are you trying to raise?
Well, so we worked with consultants.
Okay.
And to come up with the whole, you know, budget, pre-budget, you know, pro forma projections. We got spreadsheets on spreadsheets on spreadsheets, like how much we need a budget for toilet paper every month. So like we got numbers.
Okay.
And it first started off, and when they first told us a number, I think it was like over like 700,000, but that was going to be for like an entire like build out of like taking just like a blank room, nothing potentially having to do like plumbing and building a kitchen and all the, you know, making it, you know, ADA compliant. So like that was going to be like the top, and we were like, dang. But then when they broke it down, we're like, okay, well, I guess, you know, got to prepare for the worst. This is what they do. They worked with a lot of restaurants around the city, so they even know kind of just costs for things here, especially.
Sure.
But also don't want to run out of money, so, you know, got to give yourself a runway, but also some, you know, working capital on top of that. So
for someone that finds it boring, you just nailed all that: the pro forma, the projections, the working capital. I mean, you even got the jargon down.
I've gotten an education this last year, just like when we were learning all this, it was that like, I feel like that scene in Billy Madison where he's trying to crunch before the big test. No, when they're doing the thing where he goes up against Eric.
Yeah.
The decathlon.
Yep.
And someone's speaking Spanish to him, and he's like, "Go slower." That's how it was this past year. Where I was like, "What?" But since we found a second generation space where we've been able to just basically buy all of the equipment, it's already built out. It has everything we need. It's just going to be all cosmetic. It's significantly lower than that.
Okay.
It's still like more than, you know, but we want to give ourselves
like 350, 500.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So 350, 500 down from 700. Are you taking open investment? Because if someone is listening to this and they want to invest, are you being very precise with who's an investor?
We are, because, well, there's someone who a friend of mine who I've reached out to, and he's interested, so we're having conversations with him, trying to like, because you want
the 500 from him.
Well, no, I mean, he's kind of come to me and been like, okay, but so it's like, all right, so I'm just like have a call with him tomorrow, and so I'm gonna say like, listen, we gotta know because
deadlines with fundraising. Deadlines
Yes.
are huge.
Yes, it's got.
Gotta put the deadline
We
in.
gotta know because we're trying to open this by spring, the latest, and we have the space. We're paying rent on it. Like we're
Yeah.
like
So you're already paying rent on the space
Oh, yeah.
too. Oh, you got to get that money in the door. You got to get this going.
and we've already put over like almost. Well, it's getting closer to 150,000.
Because I was going to ask consultants. That's the big word, and that's not cheap.
Yeah.
Right? Is that 25, 30 grand?
No,
for
that was about
consultants?
10.
Okay. So
and-
what's been the biggest expense then so far? The rent?
The buyout and the deposit for the rent.
And
The
the
buyout
deposit
was
for the
about
rent.
75,000 for all the equipment in the kitchen.
Okay.
It had like walk-in,
Sure.
like prep stuff. It was like a big,
Yeah.
everything in the kitchen.
So and it was like an asset purchase, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So stay tuned and recap. We'll talk a little bit about that and like exactly how it is. So the 75 for all the equipment but the space, you're not buying the space, you're renting the space.
Yeah.
Yeah. What type, and I think you have no idea how, if anybody at home is thinking about starting a restaurant, how much this can help them. When you had to sign a lease, did they make you sign 3-year, 2-year, 5-year, 10-year?
So we got very lucky because we took over a lease.
Interesting.
So this was a space that, and this person also rented it, kind of when we were still like in a bit of a COVID time.
Sure.
So the rent is really great for the
Got it.
space. But what it is, it's a 5-year lease with an option
Okay.
on it for an additional 5 years.
There you go.
So
All right,
yes,
let's end with
correct.
this. I think that's great. I think it's really helpful, especially if people are looking into getting into any type of restaurant business. Like, how long has it been to? What's the timetable been? Since you put that first dollar down for this business, how long has it been since then?
When like we talked to the consultant.
Yeah, just like this idea came to fruition. So someone's at home, they got an idea. But then the idea becomes real when you write the first check. It might just be $25 to license the LLC. How long ago was that you guys spent the first dollar on the business?
It's been a little over a year.
Yeah, so I think that's really important. Like it takes a year and still know the revenue in because that's the planning process. So you really got, if you're going to open up something like retail or something in this space, you have to be like so passionate about it like you are because it takes so much time and energy before you get up and going.
Yeah, I think it's also really smart to create a budget and a business plan and work with people and really kind of nail down all those things. So especially if you've never done something like this before,
Yeah.
just so you can get really comfortable with the numbers and what everything is. And yeah,
I love it.
I'm really glad that we did it that way.
Good stuff. That's awesome. Well, if anybody wants to potentially be part of this raise, how do they contact you? DM you?
Yeah. Come at me
Okay.
on Instagram at Music Kills Kate because,
There
we
you go.
would like to get to work on this.
If you're an
ASAP.
investor and you want part of a sandwich shop owned by some of the biggest Vanderpump reality stars, go give Katie a call. All right, I have one question I want to ask you before we get into your trading secret. You have season 10 premiering. Is there something as viewers to Vanderpump, because this is a business, finance, and money podcast, that we would be surprised about when it comes to either money or how promotions work or how like the career aspect works, things like behind the curtain when it comes to Vanderpump? Is there anything that you think as a viewer we would be like, that's interesting, and I don't know, maybe something about that can inspire someone to do something differently?
Oh gosh. I'm trying to think of something
Take your
this would be interesting.
Best part about podcasts is we can edit the
I
thinking
know,
parts
I
out.
know. I mean, I've always seen a lot of speculation on what people make.
I think that's like life everywhere.
Yeah.
That's like part of the thesis of this podcast. No one knows what they should make, and people, you Google, like if I Google it right now, I mean, let's do it. It'll be fun. Let's
God.
see what does.
I see a lot of
Katie?
speculation on what people make. You know, they always try to guess like who makes the most per episode, or like what people make per episode, or and it's very interesting. I think they would be surprised.
I Googled it. It's like everywhere. None of this stuff is ever right, but it says Katie Maloney reportedly make 10,000 to 25,000 per episode. Incorrect. False. Wow, and that's a legitimate news source that I see one by. So if that's false, then this one's got the highest. This is Yahoo, the highest paid Vanderpump cast member. They're saying Stasi, and they're saying 15,000 an episode. Incorrect. Where do they come up with this stuff?
I don't know. That's the thing is like, okay. I don't know. There's no way for them to know.
Without getting yourself in trouble. Do you know what the other cast members make? Do you talk about it?
I know what, at this point, what like Sheena and Tom Sandoval would potentially make because they would be making the same amount as me because we would be on the same contract still.
Got it.
Or yeah, well actually no, I don't even know about Sheena. Me and Tom. I think me and Tom, because we started originally and we're like the only ones I think. I don't know about Sheena, but maybe he's probably the only one I know what he makes.
Interesting. Okay, and I assume at this point you guys have full agents representing you and everything.
I have a lawyer that does.
So a lawyer
does
it, and then the lawyer gets 5%.
Yeah,
that's how it works. But but other than that, you just.
I just think really all you need.
Yeah.
In this industry is a lawyer.
Yeah, because there's so many people that are trying to get hands in your pockets.
Yes.
And only 5% makes a big difference over 10 years.
Yeah, you just need a lawyer. Because really and truthfully, unless they're the only ones legally that can actually negotiate. Agents really even aren't supposed to do that a lot of time.
Okay, interesting. All right, guys. Well, there you go. There's a little trading secret. The information out there about what people are paid, again, is off. And that's something we talk about in this podcast. Before we get your trading secret, the last portion I have, would you say that the stuff out there about what people are paid on Vanderpump is off, that it's lower than expected, or people think that Vanderpump people are paid more than what's out there?
So you're saying is what's out there lower?
Do you think the misconception, because you had said like one of the things people would be surprised about is like what people make because they think they know and they don't. Do you think that financial misconception is massive across all? I mean, financial misconception is the biggest thing in the world. Guy over here has got a Lamborghini and he's $100,000 in credit card debt. That's financial misconception. That's more like deception. But anyway, you had made the comment that people think they know and they're way off.
Yes.
And then I read an article and you're like, it's off. Are people off because they think that people from Vanderpump make more than they do? Or is it because people from Vanderpump make less than what the average individual thinks they do?
It's more than what they think.
It's more than what the average is. Interesting. And every industry is like so
wait,
different.
Did I hear that? Because
yeah, like if I go get Susie over here, right? Susie's walking, and she's
sorry, I'm like, wait.
Yeah, maybe I'm saying it wrong.
I feel like you're saying that. Am I hearing it wrong? Because I feel like you're describing the same thing differently twice.
I might be, honestly. I just got.
Is it me or
I was
is it you?
up at 4 a.m.
People are
gonna
be like, "What is wrong with her?" He's saying it correctly.
No, that's a beauty. Again.
Okay.
Marshall,
so
edit it
if
out.
Susie comes up here and she's like, "I think you make this," and I'm like, "You're wrong because it's more."
Okay. Suppose here's the story. We got 500 people come in this room. Okay. We survey them all. We give them a little survey. They have to say yes or no. In general, do you think the collective group of that 500, do they think the number they come up with? So they say they come up with a number of how much people on Vanderpump make. You know what that number is. Is their number more than what you make or less?
It's less.
It's less. Okay. So most people, you believe that Vanderpump stars make less than they actually do. Yeah. There we go. We did it. We got to that.
Oh,
that's fair. But that's like the biggest part of this podcast is talking about like where people make money and how, because we don't talk about it. And if we do talk about it, it gives you information to potentially think about a different career. Think about opening a restaurant. Think about maybe getting into side hustle of bartending or service industry because we just can't find the information anywhere. Okay, let's wrap with this, a trading secret. If it's the name of the podcast, we get one from every guest. It's something about either life navigation, inspiration, career development, money management, anything. It's your trading secret. Something that like you look at your either financial well-being or your career development or just your life development, something that you could give the people that they couldn't learn from like a professor in a classroom or they couldn't read in a textbook. They could just learn it from Katie's story. But if it stays that high, as long as it's not
I would say you get to assign your own value to yourself. And so you should always remember your own worth when it comes to, your relationships and in the workplace. And never settle for less.
That is a really, really good one. I love it. All right. That is Katie Maloney's trading secret. I think that's so good because even like we just talked about, people, and I tell people to do it often, talk to others about what they make, ask what your peers are doing. But I think a good counter to that is what you said is like, if you're always seeing for information from others, how are you going to establish your value? You need to establish your own value in relationships, at work, your output, etc. I love it. It's such a good perspective. Katie, people know where to find you if they want to invest in your business, but where can they find your podcast, your social media, and everything else you have going on?
Yeah, so really, I'm only on the gram at Music Heals Kate. I mean, you can go look at my few TikToks I have. I don't even know what my handle is on there, so maybe don't. And then my podcast comes out every Friday. It's called You're Gonna Love Me, and you can listen to it on all the platforms where you listen to podcasts. And yeah.
I love it. Guys, go follow Katie along. I think what you should do with the TikTok, just a thought, make it focused on this sandwich shop, like the behind the scenes, getting it started. I see all these people doing that on TikTok and they're blowing up. And then it becomes a advertising revenue.
That's a great idea.
There we go.
Once we can get
damn money.
Once we get grooving on it, then for sure.
I love it. Awesome. Well, Katie, thank you for being on this episode of Trading Secrets.
My pleasure. Thank you.